This week on the For Virginia podcast, we talk about Virginia's budget crisis, speak to House of Delegates 50th District candidate Lee Carter, and discuss Virginia's refugees. Let's get started. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in tonight. This is Michael Brennan Wade with the For Virginia podcast for the week ending August 27th. I think we're kind of got a trend going on at the beginning of the show about shaming Virginia politicians. Fairfax, we're done with you guys for now. Portsmouth and Virginia Beach, you're on point tonight. From the Virginian Pilot, Portsmouth Councilman Danny Meeks is delinquent on his taxes for over $17,000 for the second time, at least the second time. In January, he owed $13,000, which he paid, and somehow between January and August, he's racked up another $17,000 in taxes, stormwater fees, penalties, and interest. And really, Portsmouth, come on, guys. We've got probably five. There's so much stuff going on in Portsmouth over the past 2 years. If you live out of southeastern Virginia or if you haven't been paying attention, I'm not going to get into it tonight because we've got other things that we want to talk about tonight. But we will come back to Portsmouth and talk about just the corruption within the city government over there. It's ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. It's insane. And the second one we want to talk about, also from the Pilot, great reporting on this one, by Matt McKinney. School board member Carolyn Weems of Virginia Beach is severing business ties with Virginia Beach schools after she was found out by the Pilot. State law allows school board members to enter into contracts up to $500 with the schools. And Miss Weems charged up to the limit, twice within 20 cents, and most of the times within $50. So she had all these $450 contracts with the schools through her printing company, $56,000 since 2009. If you do the math, that's like 112 contracts since 2009. So she got found out. She made some statement about following the law, which technically she did, the letter of, not necessarily the spirit of. Again, great reporting by the Pilot to find this out. And one of the great reasons why we need to support local reporting, local media. By that end, I will make my pitch for you all to go to forvirginia.org, sign up as a member, support us through our Act Blue page, like us on Facebook, share these podcasts, help us get this news and information out to everybody. We want to spread the word. We want to let people know what's going on in the state. We want people to get involved. We want to change this apathy and this despair that people have about the political process. There is a way forward, and hopefully we can get there together. Again, we're focused on state politics, statewide politics, local elections. We're not going to talk much about the national presidential campaign, except to say that everybody should already know about what's going on. It looks, for all intents and purposes, that Hillary Clinton is going to crush Virginia, or crush Trump in Virginia. Some of the numbers I saw this week, double digits. I know that Trump supporters in Virginia are in deep denial about it, and I don't want to take anything for granted, but a lot of those Trump signs that have been out in the neighborhood since primaries, a lot of those signs have disappeared. So hopefully that's a good sign. I know that the Clinton campaign has pulled their advertising dollars out of the state and put them into places like South Carolina, opening campaign offices in Texas. It could be a presidential win of biblical proportions. So I know a lot of people want to go and vote third party and everything like that. Like I said, I'm not taking anything for granted. Vote your conscience. Do what you got to do. Speaking of the Trump campaign, Trump's vice president candidate, Mike Pence, will be in Loudoun County on Saturday. So by the time you've listened to this, he would have already been and gone. So hopefully people will be out there raising a ruckus. So moving on from national estate news, I suppose the big announcement this week, two big announcements really with regards to Governor McAuliffe, is the restoration of voting rights. He did a blanket restoration of about 200,000 felons, supposed to be people who had served their time, and turned out a lot of people weren't. There were some people who still had active warrants out for their arrest, people who were not done with their time. Gave a lot of ammo to some of the right. Anyways, the Supreme Court ruled against it. That was basically all undone. McAuliffe vowed to sign every one of them individually with an auto pen, and so this week he announced that they had the first batch of 13,000 or so names that they had cleared. Of course, the Republicans are up in arms about this being a cynical act to throw the election for Hillary Clinton. Again, I don't think 13,000 votes are going to make that much of a difference, but sure, they're not all going to vote Democratic, and if they are, then the Republicans should probably try and go and earn some votes. But I think all that was probably overshadowed later in the week when McAuliffe announced that the state has a $1 billion budget deficit. Again, I said this last week, McAuliffe has made a big deal about budget surplus, inheriting a deficit when he came in as governor and turning it into a budget surplus. And a lot of that money has gone for business incentives to try and bring jobs into the state. And now we're dipping into the rainy day fund for $600 million. So bad news. I don't personally have any solutions to offer at this time. Well, that's not true. We did mention this a little bit last week, but marijuana prohibition. I guess that's a good segue. Norfolk City Council is considering a resolution, or whatever you call it, to ask the General Assembly to decriminalize marijuana. Talked a little bit about it last week. $160 million a year that the state spends on prosecuting and enforcing marijuana prohibition laws. Meanwhile, I think hypocritically taking in $135 million or more in ABC store profits for alcohol. And so Norfolk Councilman Paul Riddick, according to the pilot, again, wants to ask the General Assembly to decriminalize marijuana. There's been at least the past 2 years, Senator Adam Ebbin of Alexandria has put forward a measure to decriminalize less than an ounce of marijuana. Instead of being a $500 30-day jail term criminal fine, it would be a $100 civil fine, like a parking ticket. And both in 2015 and 2016, they have basically been left in the Committee for Courts of Justice, chaired by Senators Mark Obenshain and Tommy Norment out of Williamsburg and Obenshain out of Harrisonburg. So if you want marijuana decriminalization in the state of Virginia, Norment and Obenshain are the two people that you really need to talk to. So Harrisonburg, Williamsburg, it's on you. I will take one issue, and I did tweet this to one of the pilot's reporters earlier this week. They said that Norfolk would be the first major city in Virginia to lobby the General Assembly to decriminalize. And I got to correct them, because Charlottesville City Council in 2012, based on the May 7th, 2012 Daily Progress article, the Charlottesville City Council voted to approve a resolution calling on the state of Virginia to revisit its pot possession policies. So Charlottesville taking the lead on that. They are a very liberal city, but glad to see Norfolk taking on. I know there's been a lot of interest in that article that came out earlier this week. And to kind of circle back on P-Town for a moment, they actually can't hire all of the police that they need to. They have 39 vacancies in the police department because they will not accept anyone who's ever smoked marijuana. So, and they don't want any police officers that have smoked pot, because then how can they enforce pot laws? So maybe the answer is the laws are unjust. Nobody's thinking about that, apparently. So moving on, we're going to break real quick. When we come back, we're going to play an interview that we had with Lee Carter, who is a House of Delegates candidate, but Lee is running in what will probably prove to be one of the most critical swing districts in the state of Virginia for the 2017 House of Delegate elections. We spoke to him earlier today. We have that interview coming up for you next on the For Virginia podcast. I am Michael Brandon Wade. We'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in tonight to the For Virginia podcast. I'm Michael Brandon Wade. We had the pleasure earlier today of speaking with Lee Carter out of Manassas, Virginia. He's running for House of Delegates in the 50th Virginia Delegate District. Here's our interview.
All right, we're on the phone with Lee Carter, candidate for the House of Delegates 50th District seat in the city of Manassas and in Prince William County as well. How are you doing today, Lee?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for asking. So we wanted to talk to you about your run. You're getting a head start on the race for next November. Face a heavy-duty money candidate, incumbent on the Republican side, Mr. Jackson Miller. And tell us about what you got going on and why you're running for the House of Delegates.
So the reason that I'm running for the House of Delegates is I've seen firsthand that, you can work hard, you can play by the rules, and get left behind. And that's largely a function of the way that the Virginia government is being run. And I saw an opportunity in running for this seat to actually do something about it and decided to step up to the plate.
Excellent. Now, you work full-time in the IT world. You have the support of your employer to take 2 months off and go do the legislative work in Richmond. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. I'm very, very grateful to my employer that he's willing to come up with an agreement with me where if I win and go on to Richmond, I'll be able to take leave of absence and actually go down to the session. But a lot of people who would be interested in running for the General Assembly aren't so lucky. So the part-time status of the legislature, it doesn't make it easier to run like you would think a part-time legislature would. It actually serves as a barrier of entry for a lot of people who just don't have that flexibility. And because of that, you end up with a legislature that is primarily composed of attorneys and realtors and doctors and the independently wealthy. Now, those folks do need representation too, but they don't make up the majority of Virginia. So it's a little unsettling that they make up the majority of the General Assembly.
So Prince William County has traditionally been a heavy red area of the state. I know that in 2015, during the last legislature elections, that a lot of money put into the races there, especially in the Senate race there in Prince William County. I guess there's been a lot of younger people moving into the area and more urban development, I guess. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this area that you're running is really kind of a purplish part of the state, in that Republicans are going to throw everything they can at in order to hold on to. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the 50th district is a swing district. It really just depends on the year and the candidate as to who it goes for. As an area, it went for Obama twice in 2008, 2012, but it also went for Mark Obenshain, Ken Cuccinelli. So it really just depends on the race, and it's largely a function of turnout.
Right. So you have the support of the two Democratic parties there in Manassas and in Prince William County. You don't expect any primary challenges at this point from anyone else on the Democratic side?
Well, at this point, it's very, very early. The filing deadline for that is next year. So if there are other candidates who are interested in a primary, then they have plenty of time to step forward. But at the moment, I am the declared candidate in the 50th District, and the Manassas City Democratic Committee in particular has been extremely supportive of that. So time will tell, but it looks like it's me for right now.
Now, speaking of Manassas City, they are going to have their locality election in November on the 8th as well. Now, I believe this is the first time that's happening, and about 4 of their city council seats, but not the mayor, are up for grabs this time around. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not the first time that it's been in November. It was actually in November in 2014. This is the first time that it'll be on the presidential ballot. So there are 3 candidates on the Democratic side in Rex Barr, the former CEO of Jid Lake Incorporated, which is a company that serves special needs disabled, and the school board member Pam Sebesky and incumbent city councilman Mark Wolf. They're a ticket that is really poised to make a lot of gains on a traditionally Republican-held council, and I feel like they're a very good step in the right direction towards really a more responsive Manassas City Council. Obviously, being a progressive, there's some policy, there's some daylight between me and those candidates on policy, but I feel as far as personal integrity goes, they're absolutely top-notch, and they're people that we can work with.
So, with regards to Manassas and Prince William County, what do you see as the main challenges or main legislative priorities for the area?
In Northern Virginia, you see perennially the same legislative issues at the top of people's mind, and those are the kitchen table issues of jobs, education, and transportation. People up here and in other areas throughout the state, but particularly up here, they spend entirely too much time sitting in traffic, whether that be on Route 28 or Interstate 66 or Interstate 95 for some of the adjoining districts. And Richmond, even though they have put forward some investment into the infrastructure up here lately, that investment into the infrastructure has been heavily tilted towards public-private partnerships that have given us things like the Lexus lanes on 95 that the majority of people just don't have the opportunity. So
those are the ones that have the variable toll depending on time of day kind of thing?
Yeah, that's correct. So they call it hot lanes, high occupancy or toll lanes, which is where if you have an easy pass and you're alone in the vehicle, then you pay a toll and use that, or if you have high occupancy as well. But the majority of people don't see a whole lot of benefit from that. It does take a little bit of traffic off of main lanes, but the fact that we signed away the profit rights to the I-95 hot lanes for a 75-year contract for an infrastructure project that the majority of Virginians don't actually get is really unsettling.
Yeah, there's a lot of consternation between southeastern Virginia road projects and NOVA in the budgeting. Speaking of which, the governor just announced today that the state budget shortfall was over $1 billion and that they were going to be tapping into the rainy day fund. What's your take on fiscal responsibility versus public services like the Medicaid expansion?
I'm really glad you asked me that. Taxation obviously is a sticky issue for a lot of people. Nobody wants to see more money coming out of their check. But really it's a matter of what you get for your dollar. I feel like people generally understand that taxes are sort of the dues that you pay to live in a society that does things. And if you want to balance the budget, then you're going to have to decide where that money's coming from. Traditionally, Virginia's taxation has been somewhat regressive. It's a little heavy-handed on consumption taxes, and which disproportionately impact those who are least able to afford it. So moving forward, I would like to see the state be one that really looks towards those who have benefited the most from our society to give back and to make sure that we can balance the budget while doing things that do look after people who work 2-3 jobs and are getting penalized pretty heavily for it with the way the taxes are currently structured.
I'm just looking at Miller's VTOP report real quick, so just want to get some numbers to throw in here.
Yeah, go ahead and start by top donors. It's an interesting list.
Yeah, I did, as a matter of fact. So besides the Republican Party, Virginia Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors, and Dominion Leadership Trust Banking. So, I mean, I guess the point is that he raised, over $1 million since 2006, and I think he's expected to probably even top that for this particular race. What is your plan to fight some of this, the big money interests that are going to be fighting for him in this race?
It's going to be hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He has a lot of money. As of the last filing, he has, I think, $305,000 in cash on hand. And, in some of the lower turnout districts, that's enough to run 2 or 3 entire House of Delegates.
Mm-hmm.
And that's even a year and a half out from the election. So he's probably going to spend at least $500,000, and if this race is as competitive as I think it is, but we may be pushing $1 million on his side. So I'm reaching out to absolutely every progressive that I can find and saying that this is a golden opportunity to make progress. It's the Bernie Sanders method, for lack of a better term. Number of small dollar donations. In the first 6 months of 2016, I was able to outraise Jackson Miller from regular people 14 to 1. Now, if you include corporate money, then that situation reverses, grossly out. But it's just going to be a matter of getting enough people who are passionate, who are supportive of progressive ideas and progressive policies to chip in so that I can get the message out. We can go out there and knock on doors, make up the difference with sweat equity.
So tell us what the website is again, where people can donate through ActBlue.
So my website is carterforvirginia.com. My candidacy is new, so at the moment that address just redirects to a donation page. But if you want to find out more about me as a candidate, you can follow me on facebook.com/LeeCarterVA, or you can follow me on Twitter, Carter4VA. So
your candidacy is new. You have not held public office before, is that correct?
That is correct. This is my first run for office. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting challenge. Going into it with my eye how much of a fight it's going to be.
So could you give people a little bit of background on your personal history with regards to other political activities or activism that you've been involved with? Like, what kind of, have you worked on any issues or community activities in the area that people might want to hear about?
Sure. Yeah. So a little bit about my background. I did 5 years in the Marine Corps from 2006 to 2011, including deploying to Haiti after the earthquake there in 2010 to help with the recovery efforts. After I left the Marine Corps, I moved up to Northern Virginia from North Carolina, following a job like the vast majority of people who have moved to Northern Virginia in the last have done. And since I've been up here, I've gotten progressively more and more involved in politics, particularly at the local level. I started out volunteering for House of Delegates races out on the west end of the county, working to get out the word on Bell and Ramadan, and working for Obama's re-election in 2012, on up to last year supporting Chairman Sykes' bid for the Senate.
So you've got some activity as an organizer behind your belt, is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's correct. Mostly as a volunteer, a little bit.
Okay. We're on the phone with Lee Carter, candidate for House of Delegates 50th District next year. Just wanted to get you on the line and let people know what's going on with your race up there. It is going to be crucial to preventing that veto-proof majority from the House Republicans. Lee, thanks for the time. Is there anything else you want to close out with before we go?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that it's a winnable fight, but it is an uphill fight. So I'm going to need all the support that I can get from progressives and as people who are willing to volunteer. Go knock on doors, make phone calls, and maybe, fingers crossed, you open up the wallets and help me out.
All right, sounds good. Lee Carter, out of Manassas. Thanks for calling, Lee. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
This is the For Virginia podcast, week ending August 27th, episode 4. My name is Michael Brandon Wade. Thanks for tuning in. In Roanoke this week, FBI are investigating a possible ISIS-inspired knife attack. According to ABC News, Wasil Faruqi of Roanoke, who is known to the FBI, has traveled to Turkey in the past and may have tried to sneak into Syria, where ISIS is recruiting. Apparently, Faruqi injured a man and woman at an apartment complex, yelling Allahu Akbar as he attacked him with a knife. The two victims were hospitalized. We don't have any more information than that at this time. The reason I bring this up is not to scare you, just to make you aware, because no doubt this will be used by those on the right in order to fearmonger about immigration, much like Trump has been doing. There's been a lot of discussion about the way that some of the Syrian refugees have been immigrated into Virginia. The Daily Caller has an article about Virginia's Syrian refugees resettled in poor communities hours away from wealthy D.C. suburbs. 121 Syrian refugees in Virginia, 112 outside of the capital area. Fairfax, Loudoun, and Arlington received 9 Syrian refugees, all in Falls Church. The rest of them were in Charlottesville, Harrisonburg, Newport News, Powhatan, and Roanoke. 21 Syrian refugees in Roanoke. Charlottesville, Newport News, 51 in Newport News. It's in my backyard. Harrisonburg received 6 refugees, and then Powhatan, which I believe is kind of in the Petersburg area. Somebody's going to send me a hate mail about that, I'm sure. Got 7, and then the rest in Charlottesville, they don't have an exact figure here, but the point they're trying to make in this argument, in this article, is that they're dumping all the Syrian refugees in poor suburbs and communities away from D.C. I'm not really sure what their point is, but I have heard also arguments from the right that somehow resettling these refugees in Virginia is taking away from the poor in these areas, as if these people come into our country and they have to go on some form of government assistance for a short time while they get settled in, and they want to make it seem like these people stay on welfare for the rest of their lives or whatever. NPR had a interesting segment about a particular Syrian couple that came to the United States, and the man in the family, I believe it was a man and woman and their 3 children, if I recall correctly, all the man could think about was learning how to speak English so that he could get a job and get off of assistance. And I'm going to find that for you guys, because it is important to listen to, especially to keep in your mind next time you hear someone spouting some ignorant nonsense about, refugees coming to kill us all or whatever, about how they can't be vetted, which is completely false. Another article in the Roanoke Times along the same lines is Radford too poor to accept refugees, making the argument that because jobs are scarce in the area, bringing these people in going to take away jobs from Americans. And like most of the arguments that they make about economics, it's shown to be the complete opposite. Having immigrants in an area actually increases the jobs available, because there's this extra demand for services that have to be tendered by local workers: hospitality, teaching, retail, construction, manufacturing, engineering, and other jobs. Those can be outsourced, but when you have an influx of a population, whether it's migration from refugees or outside of the Mexico or wherever, having all these people, there's certain things that only that community can provide them. Just keep that in mind. An article in the Atlantic I'm going to post up in the show notes that makes that argument. But yeah, is Radford too poor to accept refugees? Is Charlottesville and Newport News, is there some kind of conspiracy that these people are being resettled outside of the DC metro area? I don't get it. Anyways, that's all the time we have for this week. I appreciate everybody joining in and all the support we've been getting over the past month. We will be back next week with more news, more information, another interview, and more analysis on important issues that are affecting Virginia and our political lives here in the state and elsewhere. My name is Michael Brandon Wade. This is the For Virginia podcast. Thank you for tuning in again this week. Make sure you go and join our website at forvirginia.org, on Facebook, and please support us on ActBlue so that we can continue to do this for you and get you information and support these great people who are working to change the system and carry the progressive revolution on. Thank you.